This right here isn't your usual Galaxy S24. This is the new S24 that's been hyped up because of two big reasons. Number one, this is going to go under 40K in the upcoming Big Billion Days sale. And number two, and this is important, this is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 instead of the usual Exynos 2400 on the older Galaxy S24. Now, I know all the big questions. What difference does the 8 Gen 3 make versus the Exynos 2400 in the S24 in terms of heating, battery life, overall performance, and yeah, even in terms of cameras and connectivity, because this has a different ISP, a different modem. Just how sad should people be who got the older Galaxy S24? Or maybe they shouldn't be sad at all. Well, we are here to find out. Yeah, all you need to do is hit that subscribe button, smash that bell icon right now, and let's go. Look, first things first, there's a couple of very important points to note. One, this Snapdragon S24 is not an imported unit, it's made in India. As you can see on the box, it has dual nano SIM slots and eSIM support, just like the Exynos S24, support for the same 5G bands and stuff. So no, Samsung isn't dumping older units. Second, specs-wise, except for the obvious Snapdragon versus Exynos difference, these are identical phones. The specs remain the same. Same 8GB and 128GB base variant, same cameras, and we checked. We looked hard, but the design, the in-hand feel, the display, the speakers, all the basics, everything is the same as the older Galaxy S24. Third, just like the S24, this too will get 7 years of updates, but this comes with One UI 7, Android 15, like the S25s, while the S24 Exynos version came with One UI 6, Android 14. So technically, this should get one extra update. Okay, so let's get to the real stuff. 8 Gen 3 versus the Exynos 2400. And first things first, the benchmarks kind of make it clear that 8 Gen 3 is the more powerful chipset versus the 2400. I mean, you can see the difference in Geekbench, especially in the multi-core test. You can see the difference in Antutu, especially in the GPU score. Now, 3D Mark's interesting because stability-wise, the Exynos S24 is way better, 70%, and we checked this multiple times. But if you look carefully, the Snapdragon's loop scores are just higher. Now, apart from the benchmarks, I saw no difference in day-to-day usage, using different apps, cameras, multitasking. But when it comes to intensive gaming, that's where there is some difference. See, we played Wuthering Waves on both the phones at high graphics, 60 FPS, and you know how crazy this game is. And the FPS test, both the phones were very close. The Snapdragon version had an average FPS of 54.2, the Exynos had 53.7, so almost the same. But again, a closer look shows some difference. I mean, just look at the smoothness score, where Snapdragon is 97.2%, and even its lowest FPS is 34. The Exynos is also close again at 90.7%, but its lowest FPS is obviously lower. And even in BGMI, both the phones support 120 FPS gaming, and both the phones handle the game very well, no problems at all. Yeah, the FPS tool wasn't working in the Exynos version, but in the Snapdragon version, we checked it, and we got an average FPS of 117 for an 18-minute match, so yeah, pretty solid. Now, as for thermals, the 8 Gen 3 doesn't seem to be making a huge difference. I mean, both the phones stay cool and nice when day-to-day usage. There's no random heating also. But when it comes to gaming, something like Wuthering Waves, both the phones get a bit warm. In fact, pretty warm after like 30 minutes of gameplay. But the difference in temperature is very minimal. I mean, the Exynos version was at 45 degrees after, like 30 minutes of Wuthering Waves, while the Snapdragon version was at 43, 44 degrees. So just a tiny bit difference. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a compact phone, so when you put them under stress, they do tend to get warm. There is some throttling too. It's just that 8 Gen 3's, performance is higher, so the ceiling for throttling is also higher. Now, another big question is on the battery front. See, I know the Galaxy S24 was never a battery-oriented phone. It was never meant to be a long-lasting phone. But with Snapdragon, we did feel there was a tiny bit difference. See, what we noticed is when you use these phones for normal day-to-day usage, social media, watching videos, the battery drain is similar. It's almost identical on both of these phones. It's only when you do more intensive tasks like, say, gaming or using the camera intensively, that's where you feel like the Snapdragon version has just slightly better battery life. The Exynos drains more battery. I'm going to give you an idea. After gaming tests, all the benchmarks, our camera tests, the S24 Snapdragon had around 9-10% more battery left. Although you have to note that the Snapdragon version is very new. We've just received it, while the Exynos version is something we have had for more than a year, and we've been using it constantly over the year or so. As for the cameras, the performance is again mostly the same, but the processing with the Snapdragon ISP is a little different. I mean, check out these comparison shots, and you'll notice that both these phones take very similar photos, but what you will notice is the Snapdragon S24 clicks a bit more natural colors, be it in normal or, ultra wide. I also found the skin tones in the Snapdragon version to be more different, more natural in portraits and even in selfies. Also, I noticed the 3x telephoto on the Snapdragon just had better stabilization for photos, so less blurry shots, sharper, you get the idea. And just like photos, the Snapdragon S24 seems to be capturing more natural colors in videos compared to Exynos. Exynos, which can be a good thing or bad thing depending on what you want. And the stability also seems slightly better when compared to the Exynos S24. Yeah, the keyword all around is slightly or a bit more, because you only notice these changes when you're really looking for it. And if you ask me, it's not a big difference, but you guys tell me in the comments and let me know. Lastly, we also compared the connectivity on both of these phones. We tried out the Airtel SIM, the Jio SIM, we did network tests, speed tests in multiple locations, and there was no difference. I mean, yeah, traveling to a remote location would probably give you a better idea, but if you ask me, it's not very different. So going on, the big question is, should you buy the Snapdragon version of the Galaxy S24 under 40K in this sale? And if you ask me, the Galaxy S24, even with Exynos, was a great phone for anyone looking for a compact, premium phone with, the flagship features, great solid cameras, very good software. And the addition of Snapdragon does add a bit more value to it. So don't get me wrong, I've said this time and again that unlike the Exynos chipsets from the past, the Exynos 2400 on the S24, S24 Plus have been kind of misunderstood because these are very well optimized, perform really well. But yeah, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 does bring its own advantages, so it kind of takes it a step further. I mean, 8 Gen 3 is obviously more power-packed in terms of raw performance, benchmark scores. It also seems to handle intensive games a tiny bit better. And since we're talking tiny bit better, it does bring slight improvements to the battery as well. And all of this, make an impact in terms of longevity. So I do hope that all of your questions regarding the Snapdragon version of the S24 are clear, but if you still have any more questions, comment down below. But yeah, do know that under 40K, there are phones with better battery life if that's important to you. There are more performance-oriented phones too. And if you're wondering about the Pixel 9 versus the Galaxy S24, I think the S24 is the more all-rounder phone of the two. But yeah, I know it's a Pixel, it has its own appeal. So we will be doing a dedicated video on the Pixel 9 soon. So yeah, comment below if you have any more questions and subscribe so you don't miss that video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.